First Things, episode number 65.
I seem to be lost.
And so you're working around the clock so you don't take time for yourself to feel like an actual human being.
I used to feel like no matter how hard I worked, I was just spinning my wheels.
Trying to be perfect, we try to have everything in place at one point in time, and we can't.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to First Things, the podcast dedicated to practical productivity based on modern research. My name is Brandon Vaughn, and it's my goal to help you apply productive solutions to your life to help you live with less stress, greater passion, and amazing results. So good to have you back with us today as we are in Chapter 13 of Greg McKeown's book on Essentialism. This chapter is entitled Edit, the Invisible Art. We're going to talk about this chapter today, and it's a pretty short chapter, so this may be a shorter episode than usual. But before we get into that, a few updates on things we've been talking about. We are finishing up our survey, and I think I will go one more week and then shut it down. That survey is at firstthingsproductivity.com/survey. It's a short 10-question survey. Probably will take 5-10 minutes. It's completely anonymous unless you want to let me know who you are. And to date, we have had 32 people take that survey. So I'm stoked by that. I was hoping, I think I told you initially, to get into the hundreds, but 30 is awesome. And I'm so appreciative to all of the people who have taken this survey. And if you've thought about taking this survey, here's your last chance. This next week is going to be the last time I put it up, and we'll do it again maybe in another year, kind of see where people are at and things that are on their mind. And I said that I would be going through this probably throughout the month of November. I want to give it some serious consideration and thought. And then sometime in December, I will report back to you guys the results of this survey, what you were saying, what things you liked, what things maybe you debated about a little bit. We will go through all of that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Thank you again, all of you who have participated in that. Continued having some great conversations with many of you who have been emailing me. And, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I had a couple of other email addresses, and I've been getting spam on those, but I haven't been getting any spam on this one, and this is a direct line to me. This was intentionally made to contact me directly, and I think the reason why is because I haven't put it down on the internet anywhere. I've just mentioned it here, but I haven't put it up on a web page where some stupid spam bot will surf around on my page and find an email and start spamming me with, oh, you know, I've inherited $5 million and want to invest somewhere, kind of crap. And we get all the time in email. And I'm thankful because the only people that are writing me on this email is people who are fans of the show. And that's awesome to me. I just want to keep that up. I'm sitting there debating whether I want to put it anywhere except give it exclusively to people who listen to my show. So if you're listening to me, then you have something exclusive that nobody on my website even knows about. And I like that. And as long as I'm not getting any spam, then I will probably keep doing that. And that email address is me@brandonvaughn.com. V as in Victor, AUGHN, me@brandonvaughn.com. I still owe a couple people some messages. Jackie, I still owe you a message. Jen, I owe you a message as well. Amanda, I think I wrote you back. I know you sent me an invitation for LinkedIn. And, you know, surprisingly, I've never signed into LinkedIn, I don't think. I need to look and see if I actually have something there. I probably should sign up for it if I haven't already. But I owe both of you some, or maybe all three of you, an email, but I will get that out hopefully soon. Hopefully this week. It's just been a little bit crazy again this week, and sometimes get behind on these emails when things like that happen. I also got a reply on my Facebook page when we posted the Clarity episode, which was number 62, from Caitlin. And she says, I've written personal mission statements before, and after listening to this episode and reading the chapter, I realized they were way too flowery to be useful. I've been searching the web for examples of essentialist mission statements, but haven't had much luck. Have you come across any? Well, Caitlin, I actually haven't. I agree with you that there's a lot of vague, abstract mission statements many, many times. Some of the ones that I read for you on that episode were from Stephen Covey's book, which were okay. Many of them were good, maybe not great. I find that what's lacking in most of them is specific things. They're too abstract. I want to be a better person by always giving my opinion. And I think that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing to put into a mission statement. I think the core aspects of essentialism are that we want to have things that we can deliberately measure. And as such, I'm thinking maybe that an essentialist mission statement is something that may change quite a bit. that things like Stephen Covey talks about, a mission statement, might be true most of your life, maybe at least 5 or 10 years of your life, and they may change over periods of time, but an essentialist mission statement might change every year, maybe every 6 months. So, for instance, let's say that Stephen Covey's type of mission statement is, I want to live my life expressing my creativity, that I want to be a person that doesn't die with his music inside of me, as I always say at the end of my episode. But in that case, I'm using music just more abstract. The creativity in me, the creative things, I don't want those things to die in me. I want to live a life where I'm doing that. Well, okay, what am I going to do about that? What do we really mean when I say essentials now? Because when it comes down to the moment of choice, I could choose a lot of things that I could excuse or say are creative, but they may not really be the things that are resonating with me. So right now, there are 2 things highly on my radar. That is writing a book, that is doing my music. Now, music may be something that's always there, but even then, specifically write any kind of music. And no, right now I'm actually writing a, believe it or not, a country album. I say believe it or not because I'm really more of a rock player, but I decided to start there of all things. Just had ideas that sounded kind of country in a way, not hardcore country, but more kind of modern country. And I thought, well, let me learn the ropes there, and then I will come back around and do something more rock at that point, or more progressive rock, and get into some crazy stuff at that point. So my essentialist mission statement might be that in the next 6 months, I want to have recorded and released a country album. And that might be my mission statement for that part of me. I am going to express my creativity by record, produce, put out a country album in the next 6 months. Now, that's something I can see how I'm doing. I have a deadline, I have an agenda, and I can check it off once I've done it. It's something that is an essential thing for me. And when I have things that are competing against that, so, okay, I don't have much time this week. I can watch the football game or I can do my music. Well, now I know that I can't explain away watching the football game as being creative, because maybe I am. Maybe I'm sitting there reading a book. Maybe I'm sitting there writing an outline for a song. But my essentialist mission statement says, no, that's not recording your album, so you're going to have that moment of choice there. But Caitlin, I agree with you. I don't really find a lot of very specifics about the essentialist mission statement, but I hope the discussion we've just had maybe helps frame it in a different light. Of course, it's my perspective of how we would do something like that in a mission statement, but I would turn it back to you guys. Do you know of any really good resource out there that isn't about creating some fluffy, vague kind of mission statement, but is something that really is congruent with what we've been talking about, essentialism? If you do, then email me. Let me know so I can let other people know about this, or post it up on my website or on my Facebook page. If you go to my Facebook page, the First Things Productivity, and look for my post on episode number 62, you'll see Caitlin's remark there, and you can ask about that. Well, not ask about it. You can post if you find any really good thing. But Caitlin, thanks for your question, and I'd be really curious if anyone finds anything. Maybe we just need to create our own. But hopefully some of the comments I've just mentioned about how I would go about it maybe helps a little bit. There really aren't any very good examples out there that I have found, to be honest with you. Okay, before we get started today, well, before I play this, let me talk about my essentials again. Hopefully you're not getting tired of hearing about this. My writing's been doing very well. This weekend, I went to see my uncle who actually lives in Houston, and I won't go into that, but very sad story. He's basically alone. He had a stroke, about 3-4 years ago, I think it was, and while he was in the hospital, his wife was going to visit him. They had no kids, and she died in a car accident. So basically, as he's recovering from this massive stroke that he had, his wife dies in the process. No family except for me and my mother. And my mother lives far away from him. So I try to go see him periodically. And because of that, it's a pretty long drive from where I live. So I actually didn't get a chance to write at all on Saturday. Actually, I got back and I was really tired, and I thought I was going to sit down and write, and I got distracted by something and totally forgot. It was the first day, I think, in maybe 5 weeks, that I actually did not write anything. But other than that, I've been very diligent with that. My music's been going good. It's not as fast as I would like. I would have hoped I would have been on my second or third song, working out some of the parts by now, and I'm still working on that one song. Probably won't play that for you this week, but maybe next week I'll play you some of that song at the end of the episode. But been doing pretty good on that. Been doing decently on my sleep. Been doing decently in my eating. and my vitamins, all that stuff's been going really good. Exercise is still kind of not going that great for me. I've got to get on tangent with that. So that's kind of a report card of my non-urgent important things in life. Hope you are implementing the things that we've been talking about in these last episodes, specifically to the things that really matter to you. And again, we haven't really been talking a lot about work, at least not in my report card, but that's a whole other topic for another day of details that I don't mind sharing. But I've really been pushing my writing and my music more in the center of my life because, as I mentioned many months ago, if I only had a year to live, I would be doing almost nothing but that. So that's the reason why I keep reporting on that. That's the really important things to me right now. And yes, I have a lot of other stuff I do. I have a lot of other stuff I'm involved in, a lot of other stuff I work on, but I want to make sure I don't lose sight of those things because those are very important to me right now. So a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago, I ran across something that many of you may have already seen before, but I want to play this clip for you. Probably pretty viral. A lot of people have watched this, but it is called Can We Autocorrect Humanity? And this guy, and I'll post a video link up on my website if you want to see the video of this, but it's basically about how, again, we get obsessed with technology and we spend a lot of time in technology that doesn't really benefit us, that doesn't help us achieve our goals. And I just really found this to be insightful and challenging at the same time. So I want to play it for you right now. So let's listen to this.
Did you know the average person spends 4 years of his life looking down at his cell phone? Kinda ironic, ain't it? How these touch screens can make us lose touch. But it's no wonder in a world filled with iMacs, iPads, and iPhones, so many eyes, so many selfies, not enough us's and we's. See, technology has made us more selfish and separate than ever. 'Cause while it claims to connect us, connection has gotten no better. And let me express first, Mr. Zuckerberg, not to be rude, but you should reclassify Facebook to what it is, an anti-social network. 'Cause while we may have big friend lists, so many of us are friendless all alone. 'Cause friendships are more broken than the screens on our very phones. We sit at home on our computers measuring self-worth by numbers of followers and likes. Ignoring those who actually love us, it seems we'd rather write an angry post and talk to someone who might actually hug us. Am I bugging? You tell me, 'cause I asked a friend the other day, let's meet up face to face. They said, all right, what time you wanna Skype? I responded with OMG, SRS, and then a bunch of SMHs and realized, what about me? Do I not have the patience to have conversation without abbreviation? This is the generation of media overstimulation. Chats have been reduced to snaps. The news is 140 characters. Videos are 6 seconds at high speed. And you wonder why ADD is on the rise faster than 4G LTE. But get a load of this. Studies show the attention span of the average adult today is 1 second lower than that of a goldfish. So if you're one of the few people or aquatic animals that have yet to click off or close this video, congratulations. Let me finish by saying you do have a choice, yes. But this one, my friends, we cannot autocorrect. We must do it ourselves. Take control or be controlled, make a decision. Me? No longer do I want to spoil a precious moment by recording it with a phone. I'm just gonna keep them. I don't want to take a picture of all my meals anymore. I'm just gonna eat them. I don't want the new app, the new software, or the new update. And if I want to post an old photo, who says I have to wait until Thursday? I'm so tired of performing in the pageantry of vanity and conforming to this accepted form of digital insanity. Call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile when we have low batteries. 'Cause that'll mean we'll be one bar closer to humanity.
I'm actually not sure who this artist is. I've never really followed him or listened to him. Not even sure how you pronounce his name. Prince Ia, I guess is what it is. Seems like he's been quite around, so many of you may know him. He may actually have a lot of really good stuff out there, or a lot of stuff that people don't like. I don't know, but I really found that encouraging. And again, I want to challenge you guys that most likely technology is not your essential things. It could be for a few people, but I doubt many of us have as our essentials Facebook or Twitter or text messages or emails. I know I've mentioned this many, many times, but I really do not want on my tombstone for it to read, he checked email quite a bit. And yes, I'm trying to get into a regular habit of communicating with you guys by email, but it's a little bit different type of thing for that. It's a community that I'm trying to build with you guys in that, not just email. And if there was another way of doing that where we could actually meet face to face, I would rather do that instead. But even then, it's all about balance. So I don't want to be tied to email all the time. As we said in the exercise a few weeks ago, imagine that it's your 80th birthday and people are surrounding you and telling you how you were in these roles that you have in your life. And think about all the different roles that you actually have in your life. And I mentioned in that episode my daughter, and I don't want my daughter to stand up and say, yes, my dad was an amazing guy. He checked email a lot. And that's what I remember him most by. That scares me. I don't want to be that guy. And she will say things to me like that today. I mean, I'll go watch one of her games, for instance, and she does some things with kind of like a color guard dance routine type of thing. And every now and then, when I get kind of lazy and I start drifting off into my world and surfing away, I can be out there at some football game that I don't really care about, and it will spill over a little bit into what she's doing. And she'll say, I saw you were on your phone a lot. And it will just smack me hard because I'm thinking, that's not who I want to be known for. That's not who I want to be. But it can be such a temptation, such a time suck for us. So be careful about that. Be inspired by what you just heard and go out and make some differences and different choices in your life. Embrace those essential moments. So chapter 13 is about editing your life. And Greg gives basically an analogy during the entire chapter about how we should approach our lives as an editor would approach life. He talks about film editing. He talks about book editing. He says this in chapter 6, we likened exploring to being a journalist. It involves asking questions, listening, connecting the dots in order to distinguish the essential few from the trivial many. So it makes sense that the next stage in the essentialist process, eliminating the non-essentials, means taking on the role of an editor in your life and leadership. And this is the challenge for us, is to not only become the editor in our lives, but the chief editor in our lives, because there's many people who would love to be the editor of our lives. There's 1,000 things that we could be doing, but there's only one or two that are really important. And what an editor is going to do is going to take all of these things that's coming at them, all of these different inputs, all these different intersections of things, and they're going to find those few things that actually make sense. And that's going to be the focus. That's going to be how things are going to revolve around. An editor is not just someone who says no to things. We said this a few weeks ago. Our goal is not to be a no person. Our goal is not to be a yes person. Our goal is to be a yes-no person. Yes to the essentials, no to the trivial many things. But it takes both. We're not saying no to everything, and we're not saying yes to everything either. An editor is not someone who just says no to everything. But what a good editor does is what Greg says, a deliberate subtraction. They are going to deliberately, surgically subtract things in order to make room for other things, to make room for other ideas, other settings, other plots, other characters, by deliberately subtracting distractions away from those things. I don't want to bore you with this, but I was watching a seminar last week about mixing music, and the guy was talking about how he approaches doing the equalization for music. And many of us know what EQs are in our cars. We have a bass, treble type of thing. And if you turn the bass up, it gets really boomy. And if you turn the treble up, it can get really shrill sounding. And so basically, he talked about how he edits and mixes is by subtraction, that he will find things that are really stands out and that are annoying. And he'll go in there and he will pull down that frequency to get rid of that annoying sound. And another thing that he would do is that if he had a guitar part, say that he wanted to stand out, he would find out what frequency that guitar was playing on that really stood out, and he would go in, and not only would he boost that a little bit, he would go into everything else and he would pull out that frequency. He would subtract it. So he would pull out that frequency from the bass, he would pull out that frequency from the vocals, because he was making room for that particular sound. Now, again, many of you may not really do music and may not really care about that analogy, but I think it's a really good point, is that we need to think of our lives like an editor, that someone who's going to deliberately subtract some things in order to make room for other things. That's going to help us, that's going to help our lives gain focus and give energy to the things that really matter the most. One editor said, "My job is to make life as effortless as possible for the reader. The goal is to help the reader have the clearest possible understanding of the most important message or takeaway." So editing basically involves making trade-offs. Now, this is very similar to some things we've talked about before, maybe even in the last chapter when we talked about saying no to things. It's very similar to this. I think Greg maybe could have combined those two chapters into one. I'm not sure if they belonged as two completely separate chapters, but still, I think it's a good thing that we come back to again. And I think it's a good analogy to have of your life is to think of your life as your role in your life as that of an editor. So a non-essentialist is going to think that making things better means adding something. But an essentialist in the editor mode is going to think that making things better means subtracting something. A non-essentialist is going to be attached to every word, image, or detail. But an essentialist is going to eliminate the distracting words, images, and details. I want to play you a small clip of about 4 minutes or so. And this was part of a whole series, and it was dedicated to kids. So you'll hear it, and it's not sounding very adult-like. It's kind of a little simple, and the way they approach saying things is like for a kids show. But they were interviewing an editor of a children's book, and she was basically describing, here's what I do in my day. This is what I do. Now, I want to play this for you, and I want you to look beyond just this, or listen to it at first if you've never really heard what an editor does with their life. Stand and be amazed at that. Then rewind this podcast, and then I want you to listen to this again as what your role is as the editor of your life. And I want you to think about how you can mimic some of these very things that she does in editing a book, and think about how you can apply that to your life and embrace essentialism even more. So let's listen to that clip right now.
The editor is the person who's responsible for making sure that everything goes smoothly in the publication process of a book. I read manuscripts all the time. Most people think that editors do their reading in the office, but that's not true. We have lots of other things to do in the office. So we read at home, on the train, commuting. I even read at my kids' wrestling matches and soccer games. When I want to publish a manuscript and I'm excited about it, I'll bring it to a couple of meetings at work. There I present the manuscript to people in the sales department, marketing, publicity, to the publisher, the editor-in-chief, to see if they're on board. I need to know whether the salespeople think that the book is going to sell, because publishing is a business after all. And I need to know if the marketing people think that this is something that they can really get out there to readers. But most of all, we need to look and see if the book will fit on our list and if it's different from other books on our list. After a manuscript has gone through the meetings and been approved for publication, I offer a contract to the literary agent or to the author. A contract is an agreement between the publisher and the author stating what the publisher's responsibilities are and what the author's responsibilities are, like delivering a manuscript on time. And for the publisher, one of our responsibilities is publishing it in a reasonable amount of time. Lauren Oliver is a house author at HarperCollins. That means we publish all of her books, and she has lots of contracts with HarperCollins. When the Spindlers came in, I got an email from Lauren Oliver that said the following. Hey, Rosemary. I've attached the new middle grade here. It doesn't have a title yet. I've been referring to it as Liza and the Underworld or the Spindlers. Like I said, it is either horrible or very good, and I hope you'll think the latter. But if you don't, that's okay too. Well, I loved it, but it's not easy to be an author, you see. When I sit down to edit a manuscript, I go through a number of stages. The first one is what I call the forest stage, where I'm looking at the whole rather than just the individual trees. Is the pacing of the story good, and does it move along really quickly all the way through, or are there chapters that need to be deleted or scenes that need to be worked on? I look at the characters. Is the main character interesting? Is the main character sympathetic? Sometimes authors have to work to make the main characters more likable. And then I look at the individual trees. I read every paragraph, every sentence, every word, and I edit, usually with a purple pen. I don't know why purple, but I'm kind of quirky. When you hand in a paper to your teacher and the teacher asks you to write it over, Do you like that or no? Well, if you were an author, you'd have to really like doing revision. This is a pile of Spindler's manuscripts that Lauren Oliver and I worked on together. This is the manuscript that I worked on that I didn't send to the author, that had all my notes on it. And you can see there are a lot of notes for myself to help me write the letters to her. After Lauren revised the manuscript a second time, I did what's called a line edit. That's where I go through every line and every word in a manuscript to see if it makes sense or if there's something better the author can do, or if I have questions.
So let's talk about some applications of what she basically was saying. How do we apply something like that to our life? How do we apply that to our life? How do we do this as what Greg talks about in his book? Because honestly, we don't have a real big luxury of just doing over things in our life. If we had a bad conversation, we can't just say, whoops, I'm sorry, let's just forget that. Just like the person who sends out that terrible email. Have you ever gotten one of those terrible emails where someone blasts someone and then they realize they sent it to like everyone and it was only meant to go to one person? And then they say, oh, please forget the email I just sent, or please delete the email. I can't forget it. I just read it. How am I going to forget the email? We don't have those types of things. We can't do the meeting again. We can't redo the presentation after we've already given it. So in some ways, editing our lives can be quite a challenge. But Greg talks about some tips in his book for how you can pull that off. The very first option is to cut out options. Editing basically means that we're going to cut out things that confuse the reader, cloud the message or the story. This is something we've been talking about a lot, and that is you must make choices. And it's much easier to make choices, as what we mentioned with Caitlin earlier, if you have a mission statement, if you really know what things you want to say yes to, then it's a lot easier to trim out the fat, to trim out the things around this that really don't do you any good. Maybe you need to trim the fat around how much you spend on the internet, how much you are on email, how much you are using your technology like your phone. Maybe you need to have one day a week where you fast from your technology and you just turn it off. Turn off your phone. You know, I still to this day frustrate some people in my life because on certain days that I'm with my immediate family, I will often just leave my phone in my room. I will turn it off. I will stick it in my bag. I will do something like that. I will not carry it with me. And people will try to get a hold of me and they're like so frustrated with me the next day. I tried all day. I left you 10 messages. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, you weren't that important to me. Well, I don't say that. But it's kind of, in a way, there's certain things that are going to be important to me this day. My technology is not one of them. And I'm sorry if you happen to pick this day as the day you needed to get a hold of me, because guess what? You're not going to get a hold of me. Now, maybe I should be nice and actually leave a voicemail message or email and say, I'm taking off today from technology. You're not going to be able to get a hold of me. That may be the nicer thing to do, but I haven't done it yet. The interesting thing Greg mentions in his book is the Latin word, or the Latin root of the word for decision. If you think about how decision is spelled, D-E-C-I-S-I-O-N. In the middle of that word is cis, C-I-S. Or in the ancient language, it would be Sid, C-I-D, decision, decision. And Sid, or cis, literally means to cut or to kill. So he gives some extra words that are based off of that root word from Latin, such as scissors, homicide, things like that. Sid basically means that we're going through and we're cutting up things or we're killing things. And this is part of the editorial role. We've got to be willing to cut some things out in our lives. Things that may be good things. So if we do something and hang out with our friends, for instance, and it basically wipes out our day, maybe we don't need to do that. Or maybe we don't need to do that very often. See, we're not saying those things are bad. And we've said this so many times in this series. Those things may not be bad. They may be good things. They may be great things, but they're not the best things. And this is what we're really trying to focus in on our lives. What are the best things that we really want to emphasize in our lives? So think of your life as a story. And for some reason, you have this oddball character who's not the main star of the story, not a supporting cast. They're just this oddball character that kind of straggles in and deflects the scene away from the main character of the story. Now, as an editor, you would come in and say, I know you really like this real freaky little guy that came in, but has nothing to do with the story, has nothing to do with the main character. It's a total distraction away from the story that you're trying to basically say. I would advise that you cut this scene out. That would actually hurt quite a bit, but it's essential. It's very important that you do things like that. Second tip is to condense, to say things in less words, to do things in less space, to do less things. An editor is not only saying what you should be saying, but are you saying it as clearly and concisely as possible? Why say something in 10,000 words if you can say it in 8,000 words? Why be verbose? This was a hard lesson for me to learn in my emails. Why write a 4-page email about something and basically nobody's going to read it? Why not just condense it down to 2 or 3 sentences and increase the chance that nearly everyone reads it? But we must condense things down. We must eliminate meaningless activities in our lives, replace them with more meaningful activity. How great it would be to take 10 activities that don't really mean anything to you and replace it with one thing that resonates strongly with you. Now think about how you can apply that in your life. Are there meetings, for instance, at your work that maybe you could skip out on and not go to and not suffer any consequence from? If you can, then go ahead and trim those from your schedule. Don't even go to them if you don't have to. Now, it's different if you're expected to be there, if you're presenting in it, very different. But if you're like me, I get signed up for a lot of meetings that quite honestly, I don't know why I'm there. I'm not providing anything. I'm not doing anything. They just wanted me to be there for some reason. And honestly, it's just a waste of my time. So I quit going to them. I figured if I was really missed, they would come back and ask me, where are you at? We've really missed you. We really need you there. But many times they don't even know that I'm not there. They don't even say anything. So it just frees up some hours of my time. At the same time, we're talking about editing in your life. Don't go the opposite extreme and think you have to edit everything in your life and become just totally obsessed with that. You know, you can become so obsessed with editing something that you can change what the author meant to do. You could change the whole story, and in a way that was not good. You know, the best surgeons in this world are ones that don't make the most incisions. Yeah, you can make a big incision, but you don't really have to sometimes, so why do that? The best surgeon's not the one who makes the most incisions either. So we want to be very surgical about this. We want to be intentional, but the least intrusive, the least obsessed with this. Focus on the big rocks. Don't focus on the small things. Focus on the big things that really make a difference. So I think we're going to stop here for today. Hope that has helped a little bit. Like I said, I think this chapter could have probably been in the last chapter about saying no. I think it was kind of complementary to that. I think it was a really cool analogy, but I think it ties definitely into the saying no part. Now, next week, we're talking about limit, the freedom of setting boundaries, and this is going to be different, maybe even a bit of debate, although I do agree with where Greg is coming from, but some people would think boundaries are a bad thing. Certainly, there's no freedom in boundaries, are there? And it might surprise you. For instance, I could say I'm free to drive anywhere I want in my car, and that's true, but it's only true to some degree. I can drive anywhere I want to in my car, provided I go on roads. And if I decide, well, hey, I'm just going to drive off this cliff, well, okay, I have the freedom, but is that freedom really to my benefit? Not in that case, it's not. I could say, well, I'm going to drive in that field over there and get stuck in the mud because it's not a road. Is that really freedom? Well, it's freedom initially, but now I've spent 4 hours trying to get my car out of the mud and I'm stuck. I mean, I could have been doing other things. So sometimes there is freedom in boundaries. We're going to talk about that a lot more next week. So remember the survey going on last week. So calling all surveyors. If you love this show, like this show, listen to this show regularly, then that survey is for you. And this is the last week that you'll be able to take that for at least another year. So please consider taking that. Email me. Let me know how you guys are doing. If you have questions, comments, me@brandonvaughn.com. Let me know how you're doing on your essentials. So until next time, remember this. As the great Michelangelo once said, I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. Your life right now is this beautiful masterpiece. For many of us, it's still stuck in all of the marble that needs to be chipped away so that freedom can come. You are the great artist for your own life, and you have the ability to chip away at things that don't really matter and that only obstruct your passions and your creativity. So chip away, and don't be afraid to chip away at things that don't really matter to you in the end, and pursue the things that really, really do. So embrace today with passion and intention, and don't die with your music still inside you.